Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel, where I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And how's everybody doing, chat? Hi, I don't know nothing. Hi, Riveroon. Good to see you all. Well, technically I'm just not late. I try to, set it up so that I have the countdown going for a few minutes before I start, so that people are like checking and joining before I get started and everything. But I just never get around to it because there's always a bunch of things that I need to be doing in the 10 minutes before the stream starts. So I rarely manage that, but that is literally what I'm going for usually. I don't know about you all, but I've had a pretty exhausting, just emotionally exhausting week, which I am trying to recover from. In part, I did that by this afternoon. I was streaming some Stardew Valley. I'd seen people stream that. It looked really sweet. So it was a game I had it in mind to get and maybe try streaming, and I just kept on forgetting. Oh well, good. Yeah, well, that worked out then. So what have we got in the ghouls and jabronis and overall dickheads? We can continue with Caleb Maupin's interesting approach to giving a speech. He traveled across the country, as you will remember if you were here watching this last week. Traveled across the country from Brooklyn all the way out to Portland, Oregon. And as far as I could tell, he did not prepare the remarks that he delivered. It was just sort of some, it had the flow of like a 4th grade book report about capital. Except it wasn't about capital. It was about how, Anna Louise Strong was permeated with Americanism, citation needed, and then how pessimistic the poem about how nice trees are is, and how that was the result of the guy going off to war 4 years after he wrote it. It was wild. So, I mean, one option is we continue watching that hot mess. Then we've got some stuff from the quad. We've got, okay, we had a suggestion from the Discord. Hinks and Jackal podcast. I mean, that could be good value. See how his grift works. We haven't really looked at him much. We have Xanderhole, who is apparently just straight up standing the, neo-Nazi border deal of the Democrats. Judging from this title anyway, Republicans gave up the border to own Biden. It's like, he's not gonna have any criticism of the horrible, fucking murderous border deal. We know that much. Then we've got Biden's two-faced approach to Hamas is, hello, Chris, to Hamas is hurting Israel. And I mean, it's like, these people managed to make Biden look so much better than he is because the right-wing Zionists do this a lot. Zionism is a right-wing ideology to begin with, but there is a right end of it. And these people are that. Then we've got, this should be cheery, when, again, from the wonderful ghouls over at JNS TV talking about what they want to do with the survivors of the Gaza genocide. That won't need any content warnings, I'm sure. And Biden is better than they say. Okay, well, there are refugees at the border. And Nazis have been calling that a crisis for a while. And Joe Biden, remember the guy who, when he won, they all said we defeated fascism at the ballot box? And that was like the last time liberals cared about kids in cages, though they didn't stop being kids in cages. Well, so Biden And the Democrats decided that the way they could really own the Republicans is to adopt their neo-Nazi framing of how the real problem with the border is that it's not deadly enough, despite it being the deadliest peacetime border in the world, in terms of people dying trying to cross it. And so they've been pretending that there's some sort of crisis. They proposed this bill that was going to more or less make it impossible to exercise refugee asylum rights in the U.S., which it practically already is, and just generally make everything way deadlier and worse. And they said they were just doing this to flip the narrative and own the Republicans, and surely the Republicans are going to sign up for this horror show of a white supremacist bill. Yeah, well, don't give them fucking ideas. They would love to do that, I think. And then the Republicans said, no, we don't want your Nazi bill, we want our own Nazi bill. And the Democrats are like, see, they're not serious about being Nazis. Richard Spencer's with the wrong party. Like, I mean, and it's like, I mean, how many people, like, I mean, we're supposed to believe that this is a way of appealing to voters. And it's like, exactly how many people who accept this bullshit framing and think that refugees crossing the southern border is a serious problem and they should die, how many of those people are, first of all, are there? They don't see, I mean, I haven't seen any evidence from any polling that suggests that there are that many. And for another thing, how many of them are going to suddenly vote Democrats? Well, let me see. That's only 24 minutes. Why not? Let's have a look at that one. Let's have a look at that one and see how horrifying that is. I need to come up with an intro animation for Xanderhole. And let me just say, chat, if you have ideas for an intro animation for anybody, I'd love to hear them. I mean, I have so many other things that I'm doing that I mean, it takes a while to do these animations. But, if people have thoughts on it, I'd love to hear them. Or if, like, people want to just fucking make one, I mean, and it's good, yeah, I'll put it right up there. Okay. Republicans gave up the border to own Biden. See, I was thinking of using colonoscopy video. You zoom in on Vosh from behind, and there's a colonoscopy footage, and inside you find Xanderhall. But that's a lot of work to make that thing happen. Like, I don't know if my 3D animation skills are up to that shit. Subscribe, fuck that. That's the thing that's not going to happen, actually, Xanderhole.
Alright, everybody. So, there has been some pretty big news in the world of real federal politics.
Oh, wow. What does Xanderhole think is real federal politics? And more importantly, what does he think is not, actually? Like, what is not real what is fake federal politics, according to Xanderhole?
You see, Biden's approval ratings are astronomically low. And for most Americans...
That's not how astronomically works, but, I mean, that's just almost churlish when it comes to fucking Xanderhole.
It seems that the biggest reason this is the case isn't because of Palestine.
Actually, that it plays a major role. People, especially the people who would vote for Democrats, utterly hate the genocide. Which he's very careful not to actually call it the genocide. You notice that. I mean, I haven't heard him use the word yet. And it also has to do with the fact that actually people are still fucked, and these motherfuckers are going around crowing about what a great economy because rich people are comfortable.
And Israel. It isn't because of Ukraine. It isn't because of wokeness. It isn't because of anti-wokeness.
I mean, it is because, I mean, what, you don't think the fact that the Democrats have done shit all to, like, use their federal powers, since they do control the federal government for the moment, to stop the war against trans people, that might actually cause some people to cool on them? Because, that you might actually sort of feel, say, if you were one of the people being targeted but that these motherfuckers are not going to be on your side? Like they I mean, this isn't something I can hold against this video, because this video I think came out before this came out. But now, like, the VA won't cover gender confirming surgery, and it's like that. So the two things Biden has done at the federal level using executive power on trans rights, one was to compromise with fascists by allowing a certain amount of discrimination against trans student athletes, and the other one is taking away health care from trans ex-soldiers. And it's like, yeah.
It's because Biden's old.
Well, no, that's not. That's what the media. I mean, this guy actually thinks that what the opinions in the media are themselves somehow automatically representative of the general public. The media are focusing on the fact that yes, he shows clear signs of cognitive decline. He's been in politics for longer than most of us have been alive, and not one bit of that time has been good for most people. But it's hardly the only thing. Yeah, that is. But yeah, it's true. I mean, there is a definite lack of enthusiasm over the idea of an election contested between two white supremacist genocidal rapists over whose Alzheimer's is the worst.
Biden is older than any other president has ever been in American history.
He broke. Yeah, I mean, he literally he broke that record last time, and now he's broke his own record.
And both Trump and Biden are older than the average lifespan in America.
Which it's worth noting, since a lot of people think that there isn't a public health cataclysm going on. The life expectancy in this country took a fucking dive a couple of years ago, and it has never bounced back.
Think about that for a second. While Biden has still done an extraordinary job, everyone close to Biden, including White House health officials, continue to say that his mental health is fine. He is not, like, going senile or whatever.
Well, which is interesting because he's decided to prove that by being the first president since this sort of testing has existed not to do that sort of testing as a part of their, like, pre-campaign physical. Which is, see, if I were trying to prove that there was absolutely nothing wrong with my thought processes, what I would do is to be the first presidential candidate of a major party ever to refuse to take a cognitive function test.
It has continuously become more and more popular, both mostly fueled by the right, but very well accepted by the left.
Because the left hates him. The left never liked him. No, nobody, like, literally, that's why the fucking campaign, the last one was, yeah, he sucks, but look how bad the other guy is. And now they're gearing up to do that shit again.
This idea that Biden is this doddering fool who can't remember anything, and he's barely keeping himself together. Despite the fact
that's like the best thing you can say about the man, because he's also carrying out, like, enthusiastically carrying out the signal atrocity of the 21st century. There is nothing in this century yet that actually, in just purely quantitative terms, reaches the level of what he's doing to Gaza. Like, I mean, so focusing on on the fact that, yeah, I mean, actuarial tables say he will actually be, beating the odds to live through the campaign, is just sort of interesting. It's like it's a distraction from the fact that he's, like, literally doing genocide.
Run this country policy-wise better than any president has, even more better than Obama has in decades.
That's your standard, motherfucker? Like, what are your examples of this? Like, last time we checked in with Zanderhol, he was reading through an article about how fucked people are economically, and you could watch it go through his in one ear and out the other in real time.
He is doing an astronomically good job, repairing the economy at rates that were thought unthinkable, extremely pro-union, more
Well, I mean, except for that time that he busted the railway workers' unions who were trying to get just some basic safety shit, and he forced them to accept a deal that they had already rejected. And then East Palestine happened, kind of reminding us why they were kind of worried about the safety. Because you have these fucking hazmat trains that have only like 2 actual people on them. Most pro-union, fuck off.
trans and pro-LGBT than we ever expected him to be.
That's a very interesting way he just put that. Yeah, it's true. Nobody expected much of him because he had a long history of being anti-trans and anti-LGBT, and he's not been as bad as people expected.
Like, he's just been better on every position than I could ever imagine, like, I ever expected besides guns. He's
well, I mean, the thing about presidents is that each one is better than the next. Like, I mean, each one of them is building on the mountain of shite their predecessors have. I don't know about that because it's been a long time since any U.S. president has invoked federal law to bust a strike and force a union to accept a deal they'd rejected. I think you'd have to go back to, like, Reagan with Patco. Again, with transport-related unions, interestingly enough. To find somebody who busted the unions as directly. Yeah, I mean, it's true. Sometimes, I mean, I've only ever heard of it being 2, but I wouldn't be surprised if they want to try to have, like, staffless, unstaffed trains or something like that. But yeah, I mean, it's like, Bush broke a huge number of human rights taboos domestically. Obama actually built on all of it, didn't reverse any of that shit, built on all of them. It was worse then. Like, when we talk about authoritarianism in this country in particular, we're talking about a process that has been just completely uninterrupted for, like, the past 30 years, I would say.
very cringe on guns, but for most lefties, that's a good thing that he's so hard on guns. He wants to full-on ban all semi-automatic rifles. Biden does. So, like,
oh, well, so only Nazis and cops will have them. That's wonderful.
Biden is one of the most radically left-wing.
What the fuck did this jabroni just say?
Candidates we've ever had be president in America.
Well, okay, but no, actually, he really isn't. I mean, even if that is your standard, I mean, actually, Nixon governed to Biden's left. Nixon was the last time that social welfare got more spending in the U.S. at the federal level than war. And, you know, Nixon, under a huge amount of popular pressure, it's worth noting, he didn't want to do any of this shit. He had to calm the motherfuckers down. And so, like, he created the EPA and shit like that. Like, I mean, nobody has actually governed to the left of Nixon, and Nixon was horrible. Nixon was a horrible I mean, like, the war against Vietnam, the bombing of Laos and Cambodia, all that shit. I mean, people talk about how horrible Kissinger is, but Kissinger has never held a job in the U.S. government where he wasn't under orders. And the guy giving him the orders to do the horrible fucked up shit that he did was fucking Nixon. I mean, LBJ definitely governed to the left of him, like Medicare, Medicaid, all that shit, the Great Society programs, way to the left of, like, damn it, the camera cord. Hang on a second. Can I see myself? Just barely. It's like I'm just underwater. I mean, like, all the Great Society stuff, all the social, the social safety net that everybody since, like, Carter has been tearing apart. That was LBJ. So LBJ clearly governed, and none of these people governed to the left. They just governed way more to the left than, Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton, Bush, fucking Obama, Trump, and Biden. Or FDR. I mean, at least in terms of, like, again, social welfare policies and things like regulating the financial sector so that it couldn't just melt down so easily. Definitely, on those regards, yeah, he was also doing concentration camps, but, like, that is not really a distinguishing feature. I mean, we have Guantanamo. We still have fucking Guantanamo. We still have, like, the concentration camps for refugees that they're kept in. So that isn't really a distinguishing feature, but, like, in terms of, like, the, economic issues, it is... Biden has been as right-wing as they come. Yeah, it is extremely easy to forget Ford. Ford is a very forgettable president. It's like fucking Millard Fillmore.
He is actually doing a pretty damn good job.
Like, can you give examples, Enderhole, of this radical leftness?
Objectively speaking, the results don't lie. Like the economic...
Like, you mean like nearly 40,000 dead now in Gaza, for example?
Growth we've seen under Biden's Bidenomics policies are unprecedented.
No, actually, it isn't unprecedented, and also economic growth does not mean working class people are doing better. I mean, this is, it's funny, the number of people you have to correct on this, it's like Caleb, like in terms of streamers who claim to be somewhere on the left. It's like Xanderhole, Vush, and Caleb Maupin.
And yet, the right has successfully quelled any desire to celebrate Biden.
I think Biden, you'll find, has, sorry, done an excellent job of that. It's like, it's kind of hard to celebrate Biden when he is, like, slaughtering about 10,000 people a month in Gaza, and shows absolutely no intention of stopping that. I mean, maybe people aren't celebrating because they're still fucked economically. The pandemic is still a disaster. It's a disaster we don't talk about. Sort of like when Obama ended media coverage of the war against Iraq, but the war went on for several years more. I mean, so we're fucked economically. Trans people have basically been, had open season declared on them. As we were just reminded yet again, and the feds are nowhere to be seen on that, except occasionally doing things to appease the murderers. Like, I mean, it's really remarkable how he does not provide any examples of why people should be, like, celebrating this guy. Yeah, he's great at he's great at genocide. Like, I mean, seriously, you look at this century, all the most horrible fucking, like, mass murders that we've seen, and there've been lots of them, and this thing actually tops them all. That's how fucking bad it is, and it turns out actually that's not polling well. I mean, part of why I'm, like, emotionally exhausted this week, I mean, apart from, there's that. But then, okay, so I am trying to, like, see about dual citizenship, just to, for one thing, I actually, there are lots of places in the world I would rather live than here that I've spent time in, and I would like to just live because, I don't, there are things I like about this country, but, and there are lots of people, certainly, but it's never been a good match. It's never been, a comfortable fit for me in a way that other places have been, and part of that has been, putting down on paper, like, the history of persecution of my family by the Nazis, and as I'm sitting here thinking about the fact that, basically, my family is divided into the people who left while the getting was good, and the people who were basically erased off the face of the earth, and I'm just sitting here thinking, that's literally what, people with family in Gaza are going through right now, and it's not like people that, would have in any case died way before they were born and that they never would have known anyway. It's people that they were Skyping with last fucking week. And that's kind of fucking heavy. And all that sort of shit. And it's like, you're gonna... And this motherfucker's gonna just sort of treat that like that's nothing? I mean, I really should not be too surprised about this. I mean, this is a guy whose entire grift is that he was a Nazi and now he's kind of not one, but sort of also still is. Yeah, Biden is a pompous ass.
And the left is just as on top of it. I had people in my comments just a couple days ago just saying, unsubbing now because of your shilling for Biden.
Yeah, even the kind of people who were able to put up with Xanderhol's bullshit on everything else are sick of him because of this. Like, this would be a moment, dude. Xanderhol, this would be a moment for you to say, wait a second, am I shilling too hard for this guy?
It's like, really? You're unsubbing because I am telling people to not let Trump get elected.
No, because see, if you were saying that, that would be one thing. If you were saying, yeah, no matter what you think of this horrible asshole, Trump's gonna be worse. That, I mean, I think is not a particularly great talking point for organizing, which is what we really need to be doing. But at the very least, you can kind of make that sort of case, but trying to act like this guy is somebody who should be celebrated is a bit much. And while Xanderhol probably is better off than a lot of his viewers probably have a little bit of trouble hearing him talk about how wonderful the fucking economy is.
The left is absolutely willing to hand the right, Trump, Republicans, the W on this one.
Well, is that really what's going on? Like, the Democrats are the ones who've chosen not to have a primary. The Democrats are the ones who first, like, this is the third time in a row now, where they have picked somebody. Like, Trump is a historically unpopular candidate. He's not just unpopular. A large segment of the population actually is outright actively afraid of the man. Okay? Like, it takes actual talent to find a way to lose an election to a guy that most people are afraid of. But the Democrats have managed 3 times in a row to find candidates who would have a photo finish against one of the most hated people in modern U.S. history. Like, I mean, like, fucking Osama bin Laden would probably be a better candidate against Trump than some of these people. You'd at the very least have people who are, like, doing it for the memes, voting for him for the memes or some shit. Like, the Democrats I mean, this idea that it's, like, people who are handing it, when the Democrats did not have to continue. They could have just said, walk away, Joe. Go and be racist to your family or something. They could have just replaced him. And they almost certainly do have a backup candidate, because you'd be absolutely silly not to have a backup candidate when your main guy, you're maining a guy who is actuarial tables say might not make it through the campaign, statistically speaking. I mean, like, the Democrats are the ones handing this to him. They would do, like, there's so many people more that they could put in there more popular than fucking Biden. They have refused to do that because the reason those people are more popular is because they want to actually do things differently, or at the very least they credibly pretend to want to do things differently.
Because they hate Biden so much. And a lot of them hate him because he's old. And
you really think that's it? Like, not the genocide? Yeah, I mean, you're not talking about the general public. We're talking, I mean, although the general public is not happy with the genocide. Not happy with Butcher Biden there. But, man, hey, like, this is what you're going with.
and because they think he's doing a genocide that would end if anyone other than him were president.
Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks that. But the idea, the people who actually, people are saying they're putting pressure on him in one of various ways that you can think of doing. And that is to say, if you want my vote, if you actually want re-election, you need to stop genociding Gaza. That's it. It's called, it's not a great method. It clearly isn't working. Clearly more needs to happen than that, because all Biden has done in response to all that is to pretend have these stories planted in the press where it's like, Biden called Netanyahu a bad name. I hear he's taken back his friendship bracelet from Netanyahu. Clearly, Biden is running out of patience. Meanwhile, he, bypasses Congress to send huge amounts of weapons, without which this genocide would be impossible.
And they will say, to your face, there is no lesser genocide. They will say to you...
Yeah, there is no lesser genocide, actually.
Your face, it is equally bad if Trump is elected and millions die.
Millions dying is very much on the cards right now. 80% of the people in the world facing catastrophic hunger are right in Gaza. That's a tiny number of people out of the millions and millions of people who are dealing with hunger. People, if this goes on, they don't need to drop any more bombs. They don't need to fire any more bullets. They can wait, and people will just be dropping dead. Fucking UN investigations are saying, even if this thing ends, 50,000 more people are going to die just from the starvation, just from not being able to get food and medicine and water. On top of what's the people who've already been murdered. So, yeah.
And if Biden's elected and only thousands die?
What is your fucking evidence? It's already tens of thousands right now. What is this shit? Where's his evidence that Biden is... Biden has shown no sign of stopping this.
They will say that is equally bad, and you should take...
No, they will say that is not a plausible scenario, because Biden has not shown any sign that there is any red line in this. At this point, he has not drawn the line at over 30,000 motherfuckers dead. And you're gonna act like it's just around the corner that he's gonna say, that's too much. What's your fucking evidence?
Take no action to go with the less deaths scenario whatsoever. These are people whose answer to the trolley problem is do nothing.
No, the answer to the trolley problem is get a bunch of people together and push that motherfucker off of the rails to save everybody.
And let whoever was going to die.
No, whereas your solution to the trolley problem, Xanderhole, is to pretend that there is if you throw the switch your way, the running over the people is going to be less deadly.
Just don't participate. Absolutely astonishing to me. And all
because you don't understand shit, which is why it's kind of weird that you think that you should be telling people about politics.
The Republicans are absolutely cheering about this because they're doing everything in their power to make sure that Biden continues to have dropping approval ratings no matter how good of a job that he does. It's
do you think Biden has nothing to do? Do you think that most people are taking their cues from fucking Republicans on this? Because, could it possibly be that people are just looking at what Biden is doing and they don't like it? This is so
genuinely
pathetic.
astonishing. It's like that meme where you realize that like what the average American voter believes politically, and it makes you want to blow your brains out. Yeah.
You mean the fact that most people would like to have had a public healthcare system all the way back in the 90s? You mean the fact that most people want to see an end to the genocide and it's like 80% when it's people who vote for Democrats? You mean that most people think the minimum wage is way too low? Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. The things that people think, they just so out there. Why can't 80% of the population get on side with, genocide plutocracy Biden?
You know, like the monkey meme. Um, was that one stat? I repeated the stat earlier that it's like 78% of Americans agree with the statement the U.S. government should spend more tax dollars on helping poor people, and then it drops down to like 15% if you call it welfare. The same people.
Yeah, that's called the effectiveness of propaganda, because welfare has been coded by politicians, and you can't actually blame this on Republicans alone, because of course Clinton was big into this. I mean, Clinton, you remember the guy who campaigned on ending welfare as we know it, throwing huge numbers of people into extreme poverty. And his answer to that was the crime bill to put him in prison. You know, you have like decades of the media saying welfare is black people. And also, welfare is just, it's fraud. Telling people that, money that goes to welfare is just people who don't want to work. And also, they're probably drug dealers and shit and all this bullshit. And yeah, that has an effect. It has poisoned the word welfare.
People say no if you say the government should spend more tax dollars on.
I mean, it's a crime that welfare only cover, fucking food stamps aren't enough to buy some decent chocolate sandwich cookies. I mean, that's where, as far as I'm concerned, make double the dole. Like, put that shit way up. In fact, I mean, and not just on these fucking bullshit EBT cards where, private banks are getting a cut of the whole thing. And you have to reveal to everybody that you're a benefit claimant every time you make a fucking purchase. Just give people fucking cash. In fact, I mean, if we paid people lavishly to stay home from work for like 6 months or so, and delivered free masks, the pandemic could be over. And people would be way better off.
Then those same people overwhelmingly say no, because the word welfare has been so overwhelmingly demonized in the political sphere. They don't disagree with.
Yeah, by guys like your man Biden, actually. I don't remember Biden pushing back against the fucking welfare reform in the 90s. I remember him cheerleading that shit.
Giving money to poor people and tax dollars doing it. They just don't like welfare.
Yeah, I wonder, like, okay. I'm gonna just see. Let me see. I'm just seeing if, when you look up Joe Biden welfare, you get a bunch of right-wing think tanks pretending that he's actually not been in support of just getting rid of the social safety net all along. But, yeah.
It's welfare they don't like. It's very clear the Republicans are facing little to no pushback on their ability to convince even the left that...
Why do you think it's the Republicans doing this? Like, are the Republicans convincing the left that Biden's doing genocide and genocide is bad? Because last I checked, that is the one thing that the Republicans are very happy with, actually.
Biden is worse than he actually is. And it's so shameful. Even Fox News...
Why don't you give an actual example? I mean... Yeah, I mean, right-wing think tanks Well, okay, you have to distinguish in the world of right-wing think tanks, because there are right-wing think tanks that will support, like, that are sort of agenda-based. And they will support anyone who backs an agenda around, you know, deregulation, cutting wages, cutting the welfare state, what's left of it, handing money over to rich people and having lots of war and incarceration and stuff, and they don't really care what party they donate to. And those absolutely just openly adore him. But then you, of course, do have these partisan Republican right-wing think tanks, which in terms of their agenda aren't hugely different. I mean, they're more likely to be into, like, fundamentalist Christianity and bullshit like that. And all sort of terrifying theocratic shit. But, you know, those will never give him a W. Even when he does exactly what their, like, fucking agenda is, they will never give him the W. And if anything, right-wingers have been the people making... who have been, like, the people that Democrats have been dining out on for decades. Because right-wingers, like Republicans, make these motherfuckers sound so much better than they are. You know, if you hear somebody calling Biden a socialist, it's because, you know, Fox News or somebody like that is claiming that's the case.
Has begun blasting some Republicans for their behavior in trying to sabotage Biden. You see, Republicans and Democrats came together, or I guess a very small group of non-Trump Republicans and the Democrats came together to make a compromise.
It's worth noting non-Trump Republicans is an even bigger grift than anything else, because the thing about Trump is that he's been set up as such a fucking scarecrow at this point that Republicans have realized that there is a nice little side grift where they can pretend to be the moderates. They stand for all the same shit. They, like, will vote for the stuff that Trump wants them to vote for. But they pretend to be the moderates, and then the Democrats will say, oh, these are the good Republicans, we can work with these people. And, I mean, it is so ridiculous.
One that would fund millions and millions of dollars to the southern border for securing it from illegal immigration.
Which is a good thing. Why, Xanderhole?
Which is what Republicans want, like more money than has ever been funded to the border ever before for securing it from illegal immigration.
Also, by the way, refugees crossing the border isn't illegal. The whole point of international asylum law is that if you're running for your life, you're allowed to cross whatever fucking border you want.
It is the dream border funding bill for Republicans, assuming they actually give a shit about securing the border. And
it's nothing to do with securing the border, though. It's everything to do with making life impossible for refugees. It's like the last remnants of the right to seek asylum in the U.S. would be over. It is categorically a bad thing, and I mean, I think you could actually make the argument that it is a crime against humanity in the legal sense. Yeah, I mean, here he is, he's like not questioning this. It's like, even the people who usually I find stand Democrats, like on Twitter and stuff like that, they'll be like, oh, they don't really believe in this horrible thing, they're just doing this to show up the Republicans. It's fifth dimensional chess.
And they want that win. But it also includes a fair amount of spending towards Ukraine and a decent amount of spending towards Israel.
What is a decent amount of spending towards genocide in Israel? What?
Which is also what the Republicans should be in support of.
Oh, well, okay, so what you're describing is a bill that the defeat of which is an objectively good thing on every single conceivable level.
The problem is, while the Republicans are against the Ukraine funding, obviously, because, they're pro-Putin, they are obviously in favor of the funding Israel and the funding the border.
Notice that now it's funding Israel. I mean, he, only briefly acknowledged the term genocide just in time, just long enough to explain how supposedly what Biden's ambassador to the UN described as the final fucking solution. She actually used the words "final solution" when she was explaining, giving the official statement for why the U.S. has once again vetoed a resolution in the Security Council to end the genocide. She called it the fucking final solution. Now he's not acknowledging that it's a genocide. Now it's just Israel. Like, I mean, the funding for Israel, for one thing it's worth noting is that money goes straight back into the pockets of U.S. arms manufacturers. It is earmarked for U.S. arms manufacturers. Israel has to spend it as 75% of it on U.S. arms manufacturers, and the rest of it goes to U.S.-Israeli joint ventures. It is a huge... So what this actually is just a huge gift to the arms industry on all levels, because the arms industry is also making money hand over fist with the militarization of the border and the killing of the refugees.
The problem is, if that bill goes through, and Republicans can say, wow, the border's been so well secured, who's president when that happens?
Do you care at all about what people in migrant communities and refugee communities have to say about this, Enderhole? Like, just because the mass media have utterly refused to talk to immigrant rights groups and refugee rights groups, talking to, like, border communities as well, about what they think about this, that doesn't mean that you have to leave that out. I mean, this is what's called shilling. Like, it's one thing to make to take this critical stance. I think it sucks, to be clear, to take a critical stance and say, yeah, this isn't good, but he's still better. But instead, he's just accepting the framing.
Biden. It would mean that Republicans would have to see that under a Biden presidency, the biggest border security funding bill ever was passed.
And what do you think that does to the votes of the fucking Latina community, for example? The community that is made up of, in large part, of refugees and people who are neighbors to refugees. You know, that is the community that these refugees that are being murdered at the border belong to. You think that they're going to be happy about the fact that now more people are going to end up in the concentration camps? You think people on the border are really happy about the fact that the wall is still being built and it's going through native reserve land, it's going through fucking wildlife preserves, it's going through all sorts of areas. I think on the one hand, one thing you really cannot underestimate is Xanderhol's ignorance. Yeah, I mean, this is pissing me off too. I mean, it is just, to me, like, the only reason I really watch him is to just document how clearly his ex-fash grift is a grift. Like, I mean, he still takes a lot of very clearly fash positions. And this is a good example of that.
That would not look good. That might actually cause Biden's approval rating to rise a little bit.
No, it probably wouldn't, actually. In fact, I mean, what you need to keep in mind is that there's an entire voting bloc that largely goes for Democrats and will quite correctly take this as a big fuck you. Much like the Arab and Muslim community in the U.S., in places like Michigan, a state that you kind of need if you want to be president, have taken the Gaza genocide policy as a fuck you. I mean, he's just dealing fuck yous to every single constituency that Democrats absolutely need to be courting in a campaign. I mean, Biden is like the Oprah of fuck you. I mean, he's just going through the audience. You get a fuck you. You get a fuck you. Here's a fuck you for fuck yous for everybody. Well, he is uninteresting, and he is on his good days a lib. Yeah, I mean, just in terms of just in terms of quantitatively, in terms of sheer numbers of people being murdered. I mean, the invasion of Ukraine does not hold a candle to what is going on in just 4 months in Gaza. Like, I mean, Ukraine was invaded years ago. It's still, just in terms of raw numbers of people murdered, it is not even approaching what is happening every fucking day in Gaza. I mean, Zionism is worse because right now there's this need. Yeah, I mean, it's all about winning and it's all about his clout. And I mean, I love the word chode because in Hindi, it is a suffix that means person who fucks whatever comes before it. So, like, if you listen to cricket, which I happen to love, you watch Indian cricket, you will occasionally hear people say "bang chod." Bang is like sister. Chod means someone who fucks, and so it's a sister fucker, and that is a very common insult in Hindi. Yeah, I mean it is. It's all about like his clout. Like I mean, he doesn't give a fuck. He doesn't even give enough of a fuck to inform himself.
When he's doing good things, they can't allow that.
But that isn't a good, like, objectively, you've not given an example of him doing good things. Like, his closest thing to saying that Biden has done good things is when he said that, hypothetically, maybe Biden will, like, stop the genocide before it reaches 1 million. And that's just a hypothetical. There's no evidence that he's showing any sign of stopping this thing. Well, it is a multilingual stream. I do try. Koshish karti hoon.
Well, good things in their view, not good things really to me or you guys. So,
I love to throw Hindi in every once in a while, because once in a while, on my other stream in particular, I will get people in chat from India, and they are always gobsmacked that I know any Hindi at all. Yeah, I mean, he does not even acknowledge he doesn't seem to realize how fucking self-defeating this is for his own stated goal of getting Democrats elected. Good to see you, Phoenix. I mean, because getting Democrats elected means they have to appeal to the people that who vote for Democrats. There are more people who either always vote for Democrats or only who vote for Democrats if they vote for anyone than there are who ever vote for Republicans. Like, they are clearly in the... This is why Republicans are so obsessed with gerrymandering and vote suppression. Because people who are to their left are in the majority. Democrats have been refusing to appeal to the people whose votes they need. And instead, we just get one, it's just guilt and shame. And, I mean, like, he's already blaming people for Trump winning. It's rather than saying, wait a second, maybe the Democrats shouldn't be going with this asshole? Yeah, I mean, it's pathetic. And, I mean, if people want to switch over to some other, like, pathetic asshole, we've got a bunch of them. Just say the word, we can, but we can continue on with this if everyone wants to as well.
Republicans, Trump Republicans, the majority of the Republican Party, in response, did everything in their power to murder the bill.
Good, because the bill was going to murder a whole lot of people. It is objectively good that shit did get passed.
The Republicans killed the biggest border security funding bill in American history. For good, they killed it.
Good.
And their reasoning, as many of them admitted, was because, and I quote, they don't want Biden taking credit for a good thing.
But it isn't a good thing. It's just a good thing if you happen to be a fascist ghoul.
That's for Trump. Even Fox News is pissed about this. A lot of...
What do you mean even Fox News is pissed? Of course they're pissed about it. It was a chance to murder people at the border. It was a chance to kill refugees. Fox News fucking comes in their pants over that. They were loving the idea. Of course, like, I mean, if you're pissed off about the same thing Fox News is pissed off about, you need to stop and take a look at yourself.
A lot of people are mad about it, those that know about the story. Even Fox News is now calling it out.
Even.
And that's this story here that I'm going to be reading to you.
See, he says even because otherwise he's just acknowledging that you have to be Fox News to be really mad about this. Because he thinks that Biden is left-wing. I don't know how recently you got here, Phoenix, but he was calling Biden the most radical left president ever. And it's like, I mean, he's to the right of fucking Nixon. It is objectively easy to come up with a list of presidents, including Republicans, who have governed way to his left.
You guys. Fox News blasts Republicans for killing, quote, strongest border bill ever. The chief political analyst at Fox News has criticized hardline Republicans for killing...
Who is the chief political analyst at Fox News? Fox News chief political analyst. Brit Hume. Yeah. Brit Hume. Like, I mean, this is the guy you're gonna take your cues from. I mean, seriously, he's like that. The fact that Fox News is appalled about something should immediately tell you that it's probably not something that you should be mad about.
Killing a border bill negotiated in the Senate. Quote, I think these are a couple of issues that put Republicans in peril of looking like literally a do-nothing Congress, Brit Hume told the station.
Good! Good! I'd like them to do nothing. I mean, if they're not going to do anything good, it's better they do nothing. Better they just sit around playing with their fucking pricks.
On Wednesday, referring to the border security bill shot down by the House and the potential rejection of funding for Ukraine. The GOP-led House struck down the $118 billion bill in the Senate on February 7th, with conservative hardliners arguing the legislation does not go far enough in its efforts to end illegal immigration.
Yeah, and here's the thing. They're always going to say that. Like, these motherfuckers, we've seen it on here. I've shown you, I mean, we've looked at videos on stream from PragerU where they pretend that what the U.S. has in the southern border is what you could call an open border. Like, it is literally with the wall, with all the fucking mass graves that the Border Patrol doesn't know anything about. Like, the only thing that can get through that border unmolested is money and blow. And guns going the other way. I mean, the guns make it through no matter what, going south. They will say that no matter what, because they're scaremongering over this. It is bullshit. What the only crisis at the border is this mass of desperate humanity trying to get to some place where they have some chance of survival, and hoping that their basic human rights will be respected by the country whose entire fucking branding is that they're supposedly the human rights people when they're not doing genocide. Like, literally, that's the only crisis there. And that crisis, what they need is not 108 million, or whatever it was, to further militarize the border. What they need is buses, they need hotel rooms, they need showers, and they need something decent to eat, and someplace to live, and someplace to get in touch with their friends and family in the country, and their friends and family back home to let them know where they are. Like, I mean, that's what that requires. And the fact is, this idea that these people are somehow this threat that must be met by militarizing the border. The only reason that is a thing. Sí, chinga la migra, weón. The reason that's a thing is that climate change, basically. I mean, what it comes down to is that the ruling class realized there's going to be a lot more migration coming as more climate refugees show up. And other, entire countries start running out of fucking water or are constantly on fire and everything. And all sorts of other shit. And the only response they have to the sort of collapse that is already well underway is fascism. And it's not and you find this, it isn't just like a partisan thing. It isn't just a US thing either. I mean, you see this development in Germany. You see it in Britain. You see it in Australia. You see it all over the fucking place.
Here we've got the clip from Republicans Against Trump, clipping the Fox News course.
Republicans Against... Is that the name of their group? Did they just give themselves a name that acronyms to RAT?
Respondent that said this. Fox News chief political analyst Britt Hume criticizes Republicans for killing, quote, the strongest border protection bill that I've seen in my time in Washington. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Even Republicans are calling this shit out because...
What do you mean, even Republicans? Of course Republicans are pissed off about this. They like it when people are, like, suffering, when refugees are made to suffer. They're white supremacists. They love that shit. They, anything that hurts refugees at the southern border, they want it to happen.
All being done. They don't care about achieving any actual values in reality. It's all about winning and securing power.
Well, no, they care about achieving certain values. One thing they want to achieve, the reason that Britt Hume is so pissed off here, is because they want to terrorize black and brown people. And they've been denied an opportunity because these Republicans don't know what's good for them.
And they will sacrifice political wins because they don't want the credit to go to the guy they're going up against. They don't.
It's worth remembering that, I mean, the justification Democrats have trotted out for this whole thing, at least at first, was specifically that they were doing this so that Republicans would have to choose between a neo-Nazi wet dream of a border bill and, between killing a bill that they have absolutely no reason to dislike, and everybody else in the world has a very good reason to dislike, and allowing Biden to share credit for a horrible right-wing, neo-Nazi wet dream.
They don't care about making America better. They don't believe these things make America better. If they did, you would think
Yes, they do. Because their idea of what America better means is horrible. For them, making America better means making, and this is not them alone. What they mean by that is strengthening the white supremacist, power structure, strengthening the ability of capital to squeeze as much value as possible out of workers, and, just sort of pitting workers against each other with racism and, white supremacism and fucking transphobia and all the other shit, which is what they have in common with the Democrats as well, who are also doing that. Though they have a slightly different emphasis, and they're less likely to just outright say, they're more careful about it. Friedrich Ebert of Border Policies. Hello, Raven G.
they would want to pass these bills no matter what. Instead, it's all about winning. Making sure Biden can't take credit for something their voters will think is good.
The Republicans, in the meantime, however, are in danger of losing the advantage they have vis-a-vis Biden.
Notice here, Trump ahead in Michigan. I mean, those are Fox polls, but I mean, their polls are not necessarily... what the problem with a lot of the polls isn't so much the poll itself as the analysis. But it wouldn't surprise me if Biden is doing badly in Michigan, because Michigan has a huge Arab and Muslim community. And they are, Michigan is full of people who are watching, like, their entire extended family getting wiped out by Biden. And there, you can't say shit to people who, to get them to like this guy, to back him when he's doing that. There's not shit you can say.
Biden on the issue of the border and on the issue of Ukraine funding, Israel funding, funding to defend.
Note that he's so frustrated. We keep on hearing how frustrated he is with Israel, and here he is proposing a bill to increase the funding to Israel in the midst of this genocide.
Man, I always get like a little imposter syndrome-y about my...
That's good. You should have imposter syndrome. You are literally... It's not imposter syndrome when you're an imposter.
...presentation and how entertaining I am as a...
Like, literally, that isn't imposter syndrome. It's just that your presentation sucks, you're not very entertaining, and you don't know anything about what you're talking about.
...the political commentator. Like, am I not funny enough? Am I not entertaining enough? Am I not verbose enough? Am I not well-spoken enough? But
well, you forgot that you're not well-informed enough, and that your opinions suck shit. Like, literally, this isn't I mean, him worrying that he has imposter syndrome? That's like fucking Elon Musk worrying that he has imposter syndrome.
But then I look at any conservative pundit on the right, and
it's like the Spider-Man meme.
And 99% of the time, they have like 100,000 times more success than me, and like 100,000 times less talent. And I'm like, okay, never mind.
Can you actually divide by 0 on the talent?
Never mind.
I mean, like, the one thing he's got, okay, is that he's got a voice that you can listen to. I will give him that. He's got a voice for that is made for a microphone. Other than that, like, he doesn't know anything about what he's talking about. His opinions are the same fucking, like, centrist liberal garbage that you can get pretty much anywhere. He adds a little bit of stank to them, and he's not actually, like, was anything in this thing supposed to be funny?
I'm fine.
Taiwan,
I'm relieved.
They are refusing to act on these measures that would deal with that. Also on the issue of rebuilding America's defenses.
Rebuilding America, what happened to America's defenses that they need to be rebuilt? Did I miss Independence Day happening in real life? That the U.S. military-industrial complex is in need of reconstruction?
So I think that that snapshot that those polling numbers you cited represent may be temporary and are likely to be temporary, in fact. And that the Republicans, think of what the Republicans are doing, for example, Kevin, on the border issue. They said that they wouldn't pass aid to Ukraine and other places unless there was action on the border.
Fuck that.
So the Senate produced a bill negotiated by one of its most conservative Republican members.
I mean, the thing is, you could literally, like, have the Death Star on the border. You could, and they would still be like, oh, well, there's open borders because it turns out, look, there's still some bits of Alderaan left. See, that's just their soft on defense because there are still some identifiable pieces of Alderaan floating around someplace. Build Back Better, yeah.
That thing as well.
Build Back Better sounds like somebody who's being critical of the baby who has back. I have not seen Independence Day since it was out in the cinemas.
Is the left's response to Biden doing this has been the worst imaginable.
What, you mean the left did not immediately go fucking hog out on the fact that Biden wants to kill brown people on the border at the same time as killing brown people in Gaza?
The response from the left has been to attack Biden. Say, this is Biden being weak with the Republicans and giving them what they want.
That is not what the left is saying. The left is not saying he's being weak. the left is saying he's being murderous. And the thing is, it's like white supremacism is kind of the through line of Biden's time in politics at the federal level. He got in to fight against the civil rights movement. His closest political associates in Congress for decades were the most openly white supremacist, pro-segregationist, Jim Crow motherfuckers that the Republicans had to offer. He spoke at Strom Thurmond's fucking funeral. No, I mean, the left isn't saying he's being weak. At the most, what he's doing there is, like, coming up with a shitball interpretation of what people was saying, and as opposed, like, that he's refusing to actually call out the lie at the heart of this border crisis narrative. But I don't think anyone calls that being weak, because the point is, he doesn't want to call out that lie because he is a major purveyor of that lie.
No, it's not. Biden just exposed the Republicans as not giving a fuck about the shit they claim to care about. When the fucking debates happen, when Biden is...
Who cares? Who cares if they don't give a fuck about Nazi shit? Like, seriously, what's the fucking benefit there? Ooh, I mean, do you really think that, like, Richard Spencer's gonna be like, fuck, I'm gonna have to vote for Biden now? You really think, like, I mean, Tim Pool's gonna be like, you know, shit, Trump had me, but Biden's racism game is really hard to beat. They're not going to support him. Like, what was the fucking end game here? If the idea was to electoral advantage, nobody is going to move over as a result of this. The people this appealed to think that we'll never vote for Democrats.
Running ads and the election is happening, Biden can say, these Republicans destroyed the strongest border funding bill ever that would have kept actual legal immigration out of this country.
By what means would it have kept them out of this country, Zan? Would you like to talk about what would happen to these people under that bill? Since you seem like so happy to talk about... I mean, what's wild about this is this motherfucker is going to pretend to care about kids in cages fairly soon. Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. The Democrats, from the start, have acted in a way utterly inconsistent with their words. Like, they talk about what a threat Trump is. Like, I mean, remember early on in the Trump years, they were all talking about, he's a Russian agent and shit. And what did they do in Congress? They voted to give him more surveillance powers and more weapons. And it's like, is that how you behave with somebody who you're saying is a foreign, an enemy agent? And then they say he's just such a huge... The reason that you have to just fucking shove your principles up your ass and vote for Biden is that Trump is such a threat. But they don't take that the other way. They don't say, well, wait a second, Trump is such a threat, we really need to, meet working people halfway. They won't say that. They don't say, that he's such a threat, we really ought to just give universal health care no matter how much it pains us.
Biden outed the Republicans in power right now as not giving a fuck about the issues they campaign on.
Who cares?
Hell,
it's nice to think that they don't give a fuck about those things. It would, like, literally, the people who give a fuck about that stuff are bad people.
the pro-gun Republicans are already pissed off at current Republicans. A lot of pro-gun, like right-wingers online right now, do not like that the majority of the Republican establishment isn't really doing anything about guns.
What joke? I don't think I even saw it.
The Democrats are passing gun bans all across the country, and Republicans aren't doing shit in response.
Well, because I think probably everybody understands that the people who have most of the guns that are in private ownership are not going to have to worry about this stuff. It is not going to be used. They're not going to disarm Nazis. They're not going to disarm your right-wing militia types. There were all sorts of mechanisms in place to disarm them to begin with. I mean, like federal conspiracy statutes in particular could be used to disarm them and just break them up if they wanted to. But that stuff's only ever used against leftists. That's only used against, like, black revolutionaries and, cops, Stop Cop City. They don't give a shit because they know the cops are not going to come and take their guns, really.
There are very little gun rights being restored across the country, despite...
Also, gute Frage, GGM. Oh, ich sag's mal so. Ich finde, das ist die falsche Frage. Ich finde, man kann ja wirklich, also zwischen den beiden ist ja kaum zu unterscheiden. Denn politisch gesehen hat der Biden so ziemlich alles weitergemacht, was Trump bereits getan hat. All die schlimmsten Verbrechen, die Trump begangen hat, hat Biden weiterhin begangen. Und es geht jetzt um Völkermord. Und ich finde, es ist ja absurd, davon besser oder schlimmer zu reden, denn das ist ja einfach, das ist einfach unerträglich. So oder so ist das unerträglich. Mich interessiert nicht wirklich, wer diese angeblich demokratische Wahl gewinnt, sondern vielmehr, was wir tun. Denn egal, wer diese Wahl gewinnt, werden wir uns organisieren müssen. Wir werden kämpfen müssen. Wir werden härter kämpfen, als wir uns je vorgestellt haben, kämpfen zu müssen. Und darum geht's mir letzten Endes. Also, jede Wahl bietet weniger Unterschiede an als die letzte in diesem Land. Mir geht es gar nicht um diese Wahlen. Also mir ist eigentlich, mich interessiert das eigentlich weniger. Mir geht es eher um Organisation und Kampfbereitschaft.
large amounts of Republican electoral power being held. And so pro-gun people are just sitting there waiting. That's a big wedge issue in America. Immigration is a big wedge issue in America.
It's not as big as you think.
Abortion is a big wedge issue in America.
Oh, it's one that the Democrats have just decided not to capitalize on, too. I mean, they could have just protected abortion at the federal level when they had the House and the Senate and the White House. And no, they decided not to. They could have done that with LGBT rights multiple times. Like, Obama actually had the codification at the federal level of Roe on his desk on his first day in the White House. He had promised he was going to sign that thing along with the Employee Free Choice Act, which would have made union organizing way easier. And he just sort of binned them both.
When the Democrats have the W on all three of these things, or at the very least the Republicans can't take the W on all three of these things.
That's not good!
That's a big goddamn deal. People need to stop attacking Biden on this, seeing...
You don't even understand what people are attacking him about. It's not about him being weak. It's about the bill, actually murdering people. It's and you combine... it would have been a bad bill. It would have been objectively horrible if it had just been the border. But then they put more money for genocide in Gaza in the thing?
Him as weak because he quote-unquote compromised with the Republicans, and see this as what it is. Biden played Washington politics exactly as you're supposed to, and was still able...
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. He played it exactly as you're supposed to, and the way you're supposed to do it is to screw over the working class.
...to reveal to everybody the Republicans don't believe a fucking thing they claim to care about.
Who cares? Who are you going to win over with this?
On the border, which had some defects in it, as compromise measures always do, and it was nonetheless the strongest border protection bill that I've seen in my
Yeah, I mean, at the state level, there has been a bit of decent stuff. I'm talking federally. I mean, although the Democrats actually in New Hampshire, I think it was, actually a lot of them went and voted for an anti-trans law there.
My time in Washington, and the House.
It's so sad to see something Biden's done, that the Democrats have done, that has resulted in so much infighting and schisming within the right and within the Republican Party, get so much hate from the left.
I wonder why that is. You want to think about why that is, Zan? Like, have you considered for a second why that is? Have you considered what the actual human cost of passing that thing would be?
For the left to see it and be like, you can't do that, that's bad, I'm criticizing you for that, when it was one of the...
It is bad, though. Like, I mean, and he just uses this depersonalized, abstract, the left. I mean, it's like, literally, it's like immigrants' rights groups, it's fucking Latina communities, it's people who are going to be harmed by this thing, who have been leading the charge, and nobody's listening to them. Like, including Zan. He could be talking to one of them. I'm sure somebody would love to have a platform, because the media are ignoring them too.
The most effective winning strategies the Democrats have actually employed in Washington politics in a long time.
So the winning strategy being telling Latina voters that they should stay home, that they're going to get screwed over by Biden.
Okay, here's what you want, but it comes with what we want too, that you claim to not really be against, so vote on it. And now we have that image. Where is it? Border funding bill results. See?
Like, you can just tell this motherfucker has absolutely no stake in any of this. That's what this comes down to. He just has absolutely no stake in this thing. And so he can talk about this like it's just a fucking game. Like there aren't any lives at stake. I'm just going to drop my Discord link in there. This is where you can find me in between streams if you have ideas or suggestions or just want to chat and stuff. Because I am actually closing in on 1 a.m. here, and so I will be wrapping up fairly soon, but let's keep watching.
Conservative Twitter accounts fucking cope and try to explain this away when you post it in their replies when they...
But what's the W? Like, seriously, what's the W?
About immigration is so fun. Look at this. $1.7 trillion border spending bill. On motion to concur, the Democrat votes yes. 214. Republican votes yes. 9 Republicans voted yes.
One of the worst pieces of anti-immigrant legislation we have had in the U.S. was a Clinton-era law called the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, which created a vague and elastic category of so-called aggravated felonies, a term that was not defined in the law and does not exist in U.S. law. So what it meant was that people who have these undefined aggravated felonies in their record, even going back decades, are subject to immediate deportation. And the immediate result of this is that the INS, as it was called at the time, would rounded up people who'd been living here for decades over a fucking DUI from the 1970s and shit like that. I mean, this sort of horrible shit is very bipartisan. I mean, a lot of the worst things Trump did were made possible by IRERA, is how it's pronounced, from I think it was 1996.
One Democrat voted no on the bill.
Well, I mean, that's one decent person in there.
199 Republicans voted no on the biggest border security funding bill in U.S. history. This was a massive dick-swinging move by Biden.
Yeah, that is not a term that I don't think I needed to hear about Biden's dick.
And the Democrats
Simply announced it was
creepy
not going to take
bastard
it up, so it failed even in the Senate. Then comes this question of the measures for the funding of Ukraine and elsewhere, and that looks like it's going to go down in the House as well, even though it passed the Senate. So I think these are a couple of issues that put Republicans in peril of looking like literally a do-nothing Congress, which is something you can bet
they're a do-nothing Congress.
Who cares? That's not like... would you like to see them doing things? Like, given the things that they're likely to be doing, if they're doing things, I'd rather see them on the fucking golf course. I mean, I'd rather see them in one of those submarines that guy made, the ones with the carbon fiber hull that has a hole in it. I'd love to see them in one of those, but barring that, I mean, I'd rather see the motherfuckers on the golf course than actually doing things. That is, like, objectively better.
Be talking about going forward.
And their strategy is to remain a do-nothing Congress until the end of Biden's term, because if they do anything good, they are terrified that Biden will be able to take credit for it.
No, I mean, the thing is, I think it's more likely they realize that if they actually do anything bad, then they will probably lose the House and the Senate. And they're not going to do anything good. They don't do good things. They, like, literally nothing. If it has their support, there's probably something bad about it. You can be fairly certain about it. They're not good people. Like, so probably they're realizing that the best chance they have right now of not, like, getting completely swept out of the House and the Senate is to avoid having their names on any kind of the kind of legislation they want. Because if people don't notice, you know, the sort of things they do, they're less likely to be unpopular. And with that, it is time for me to wrap up. I'd just like to thank everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the stream. The glorified Pringles can? I have no idea what that's about. And if you enjoyed the stream, then please consider supporting the stream by joining my Patreon or leaving me a tip. But of course, only if you actually can and really want to. Nobody should feel bad if they can't, or if they don't feel like it, or if they've got other things that they really need to be spending it on, whatever. Like, but if you can and you want to, I'm happy to relieve you of that. But in any case, I will be back at 11:30 p.m. Oh, the submarine Pringles can. Yes, indeed. Carbon fiber Pringles can. Which you can sing to the tune of We Didn't Start the Fire. And I will be back at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time tomorrow night. And at 4:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time on Hyperpolyglotting with Elise on Twitch, where we'll be doing some Stardew Valley and talking languages and things. Have a good night.